She didn't know I was home. That's where it starts. Not with a fight. Not with a text. Not with a suspicious glance or a lipstick stain or any of the classic signs you expect in a story like this. Just a quiet Tuesday, a little bit of rain, and me, sitting in the hallway like a forgotten umbrella, listening to the woman I gave my life to say something I can't ever unhear. I can't stand when he hugs me. It's like being grabbed by a desperate child. Her voice was soft, like she didn't want to be cruel, just honest. But to me, it felt like being peeled open from the inside, like she reached into my chest and turned the lights off. She was on the phone. One of her friends. I still don't know which one. I'd gotten home early from work, but my car was in the shop, so she didn't hear me pull up. I didn't call out. I didn't want to interrupt her. I was literally about to walk into the living room with a stupid little surprise I got her from this bakery near my office, a peach tart she once said she liked, even though she hadn't touched one in years. And then she said that. I didn't move. I just stood there, holding a brown paper bag with a ribbon on it, while my ears buzzed and my fingers went numb. It's like, he needs it too much, you know, she kept going. Like, I give him a hug and he melts like it's the highlight of his month. It's exhausting. I feel like I'm responsible for his entire emotional stability. She laughed. She laughed. I dropped the tart. The bag hit the floor with this soft little thud, like even it knew it wasn't welcome anymore. I backed away. Slowly. Quietly. Like a coward. Like a ghost. I didn't confront her. I didn't make a sound. I just went to the basement and sat there in the dark next to the washing machine for an hour, wondering if I imagined it. If maybe I misheard. If maybe she was talking about someone else. But I didn't mishear. Because for the next week, I watched her. Closely. Too closely. And everything clicked into place. How she barely touched me anymore unless I initiated. How she'd recoil slightly when I hugged her from behind. How she'd smile with her mouth, but not with her eyes. How every compliment I gave her was met with a distracted thanks as she stared at her phone. She wasn't just tired. She wasn't just stressed. She was done. With me. But instead of saying it, she smiled through her teeth and hugged me like she was hugging a neighbor she barely knew. And I, idiot that I am, soaked it up like it meant something. The worst part? Now that I knew, I could feel it in her arms. And still I held on. For 2 more weeks, I kept pretending. I cooked dinner. I folded her laundry. I asked her about her day, even though I knew she didn't care about mine. Until I found the second phone. That's when the pretending stopped. I never went looking for it. That's what makes it worse somehow. If I had been snooping, if I had been digging through drawers like some paranoid wreck, maybe I'd feel like I earned the gut punch I got. But no, I was just trying to clean out the junk drawer in the kitchen because it wouldn't close properly. And there it was, wedged between an old phone charger and a dried-out pen. A second phone, one I'd never seen before. It was sleek, newer than her regular one, and completely turned off. For a second, I actually laughed to myself. I thought, maybe it's her old phone. Maybe she forgot about it. I even pressed the power button out of curiosity, thinking it might be dead. But no, it turned on immediately. Fully charged. Lock screen glowing. No cracks, no dust. Not a single fingerprint smudge. It was used, and used recently. The lock screen had no photo. Just the time and date, and a message notification that said, "Last night was risky, but worth it." I dropped it. Literally. Like a cartoon idiot. My hands just gave up. The phone hit the linoleum with a thud that echoed louder than it should have. I stared at it like it was radioactive. My heart was pounding, but my mind hadn't caught up yet. I told myself, you don't know what that message means. Don't jump to conclusions. Maybe it's about a project. Maybe it's a friend being dramatic. But deep down, I knew. The part of me that had been collecting all the little red flags knew exactly what it was. She came downstairs 10 minutes later, completely casual, asking if I'd seen her black hoodie. I didn't mention the phone. I didn't even look at her. Just said, check the laundry basket. And she walked right past the open drawer without even glancing inside. That's when I knew for sure it was hidden on purpose. She knew where it was. She'd put it there. And she didn't expect me to ever find it. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I just laid there next to her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe like nothing was wrong. Her phone, the regular one, was on the nightstand, lighting up every now and then with boring notifications. But I kept thinking about the other one, the real one, sitting quietly in the drawer like a grenade with the pin halfway out. The next morning, she left early. Some made-up meeting, I'm sure. I didn't care. As soon as the door shut, I went back to the phone. I didn't know the password. I tried birthdays, anniversaries, even her old dog's name. Nothing worked. But I remembered something. Months ago, I helped her set up Face ID on her work phone. She always complained about typing in passwords. What if she used it on this one too? I held the phone up to her laptop webcam. Yeah, I know how insane that sounds, but I had an old screenshot of her face from a video call saved on my computer. Just her looking straight into the camera. And I'll be damned, it worked. I don't even know how it worked. But the screen unlocked. I should have stopped there. I should have tossed the phone, walked away, called a therapist, something. But I didn't. I opened the messages. And there it was. A thread labeled J. No emojis, no last name. Just a single letter. Hundreds of messages. Hundreds. The one from the lock screen? That was the mildest one. I started scrolling. Fast at first. Then slower. Then my hands just stopped. There were photos. Audio clips. Inside jokes. Weekend plans. Messages like, he's clueless. I think he believes we're still in love. His hugs feel like guilt blankets. I want to scream every time he touches me. If he ever finds out, I'll just spin it. He's too soft to fight back. That last one hit me harder than I can explain. Because she was right. I wasn't going to fight. Not yet. Instead, I started planning. And my plan was silence. Because if she thought my hugs were suffocating, I wanted her to see what real distance felt like. It's strange how easy it is to vanish from your own life without anyone noticing. That's what I started doing the morning after I read those messages. I didn't storm out. I didn't scream. I didn't even ask who Jay was. I just began subtracting myself from the story, one tiny decision at a time. First, I stopped reaching for her in the mornings. Normally, I'd wake up before her, curl around her like a habit, whisper something dumb like, "Still the prettiest woman I know," and kiss the back of her neck. It was muscle memory. But not that morning. I laid still, facing the opposite direction, waiting for her alarm to go off so I could pretend I was already awake and busy. She noticed. I saw it in the way she glanced over and lingered for a second longer than usual. But she didn't say anything. She got up, stretched, went through her routine like nothing was different. She wore the same perfume she used to save for date nights. I hated how much that hurt. I made coffee. 1 cup. Just mine. Normally, I'd make 2 without asking. I knew how she liked hers. Cinnamon oat creamer, a splash of almond milk, no sugar. She'd take it to the couch, scroll through her phone, and hum under her breath. That morning, she walked into the kitchen, saw the lone mug, and said, "No coffee for me?" I shrugged. "Didn't know if you were in." She laughed, but it was tight. Forced. Where would I be? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. That was layer 1, small withdrawal. Quiet discomfort. The kind of change that scratches at the edge of someone's awareness, but not enough to demand a confrontation. Over the next few days, I kept stacking layers. I stopped asking about her day. I stopped offering to help with anything. I ate alone at the kitchen counter instead of setting the table. I didn't touch her unless she initiated. And when she did, I made sure my arms felt distant, like I was just going through the motions. She noticed. But the terrifying part? She never once asked me what was wrong. She didn't want to know. I think she preferred this version of me, silent, subdued, disappearing. Less of a burden. Easier to manage. But if she thought she'd broken me into compliance, she was wrong. I wasn't shrinking. I was studying. I needed to know who Jay was. And more importantly, I needed to know when he'd started taking up space that belonged to me. So one night, when she left her regular phone in the bathroom while she showered, I opened her calendar. I don't know why I never thought to check it before. She always used her digital calendar religiously, color-coded everything. And there it was, recurring Thursday entries for the last 4 months, labeled Yoga at Flora's. Only here's the thing. Flora is her ex-colleague. She moved to Chicago over a year ago. I checked the GPS history on her phone, and just like that, the whole house of cards came crashing down. Every Thursday evening, while I stayed home thinking she was stretching on a mat with 30 strangers, she was at the same residential address in Midtown. An apartment building I didn't recognize. A man's name on the buzzer log. Jason. No last name. Jay. There it was. Like a knife in the dark. And the sickest part? The next Thursday was tomorrow. I sat at my desk that night, staring at my wedding photo, wondering how many times she'd smiled at me with that same lipstick she'd later smear onto someone else. wondering how many of my hugs she'd tolerated just long enough to run off to another man's arms. But I wasn't going to stop her. Not yet. Let her think I was blind. Let her walk right into her own fire. Because this time, I wouldn't be the one who burned. Thursday came faster than I expected. I spent most of that day at work pretending to focus, nodding through meetings, responding to emails without reading them, just counting the hours. Every second ticked louder in my head than it should have. I kept replaying the image of her standing in front of that midtown apartment door, fixing her hair in the reflection of the glass before she rang the buzzer. I imagined his voice greeting her on the intercom. I imagined her laughing. That specific laugh she used to give me when I was the only one who knew how to make her smile like that. Now I wasn't even a footnote in her joy. She left the house at 6:14 p.m. Yoga mat in the back seat. Ponytail. Oversized sweatshirt she never wore around me. She even sprayed the same perfume I used to compliment her on when we were dating. She was dressing up for yoga. I watched from the upstairs window as she backed out of the driveway. Didn't even say goodbye. That part still stung. No see you later. No peck on the cheek. Just silence. And yet somehow, that was exactly what I wanted. 10 minutes later, I followed. I didn't trail her directly. That would have been obvious. I already knew where she was going. I'd mapped out the building. Even found out the name of the tenant in Unit 4C, Jason Trent. Sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. I took a rideshare and asked the driver to drop me a block away. My heart was punching holes in my ribs the entire time. Not because I was afraid of getting caught, but because a part of me was still hoping, desperately, stupidly, that I'd gotten it wrong. I didn't get it wrong. I watched her from across the street. Hoodie off, hair freshly tied back. She buzzed up, the door clicked, and she walked in without hesitation. Like she'd done it 100 times. And maybe she had. I stood there for 10 full minutes. I don't know why. Maybe to punish myself. Maybe because part of me still believed she'd come right back out. But she didn't. I didn't go up. I wasn't ready to face it. Not like that. I just walked back the way I came and sat in a 24-hour diner 2 blocks away, nursing a cold coffee I didn't drink. I stared at the tiled table, trying to remember the last Thursday she actually came home sore from yoga. She never did. And now I knew why. At 9:47 p.m., she texted me. Yoga was great. Heading home now. Want me to grab anything? I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. No. All good. She got home a little after 10:20. She didn't notice anything off in the house, didn't suspect a thing. I watched her from the kitchen doorway as she casually unpacked her fake gym bag, humming some song like she hadn't just walked out of another man's apartment and lied to my face. Again, I wanted to scream, to grab her and ask, how could you do this to me? But I didn't. Instead, I asked her how yoga was. She gave me some canned answer about how the instructor was pushing them harder lately, and she might be sore in the morning. I told her I'd rub her shoulders if she needed. She smiled, thanked me, said, you're sweet. Sweet. That word felt like poison in my mouth. I slept on the edge of the bed that night. My back to her. My heart in pieces. But in the morning, I made a decision. If she was going to treat this marriage like a game, I was going to start playing one of my own. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to confront. I wasn't going to cry in front of her again like I did the day she forgot our anniversary and pretended it didn't matter. No, I was going to give her everything she claimed to want. Distance, coldness, silence. And when it was time, I'd leave her in the very same quiet she once said I smothered her with. But first, I needed proof. I needed undeniable, inescapable, unspinnable truth. And for that, I needed help from someone who knew exactly how to dig through lies for a living. I didn't know anyone in law enforcement. No old army buddy, no cousin with a badge. I wasn't even the kind of guy who knew how to ask for help without sounding like I was about to cry. But I remembered something. Months ago, one of my coworkers, Brent, the loud guy from accounting, mentioned this private investigator he'd used during his divorce. He'd said it like a joke, bragging about how the guy got it all on camera and helped him keep his boat. I remember smiling politely at the time and thinking, what kind of marriage ends with a boat ransom? Well, now I understood, and I needed my own version of that guy. I waited until the weekend, when Eloise was out with Sarah. Sarah lived 3 states away. I guess my wife assumed I wouldn't notice, or that I'd never met Sarah in person. I texted Brent casually, asked for the name of that PI, said I had a friend who needed one. He didn't question it, just sent back a name, Leo Hannigan, and a number. Calling Leo was the most surreal thing I've ever done. His voice was dry, clipped, efficient. He didn't ask why I suspected her. He just asked what I needed. I told him I didn't want to destroy her life. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted clarity. Evidence. Something that would stop my brain from playing tricks on me at 2 a.m., wondering if I was the one who ruined everything by loving her too much. He agreed to take the case. We met in a parking garage. Not because we were in some spy movie, but because he said it was the safest place to avoid being seen. People don't look up in parking garages, he told me. That line stuck with me. Like everything about this guy was designed to disappear. I handed him the address, the dates, the name, Jason Trent. He raised an eyebrow when I said it. Asked, "You sure it's that Jason Trent?" "What do you mean that Jason Trent?" I asked. Leo pulled out his phone, tapped for a moment, then showed me a photo. My stomach dropped. It was him. Jason. The guy from the gym 2 blocks from our house. He used to wave at me every Sunday when I walked our dog past the smoothie bar. I even helped him jumpstart his car once in winter. He'd thank me, called me a good dude. That same good dude was now sleeping with my wife on Thursday nights. Probably more. Leo didn't react, just nodded and said, "I'll have what you need in a week." True to his word, 5 days later, I got a secure folder sent to my email. I waited until Eloise left for work before opening it. And even though I thought I was ready, I wasn't. There were photos. Time-stamped. Clear. Eloise, entering Jason's building. Eloise, waiting at the lobby door. Eloise, pressing the buzzer. Then, Eloise and Jason. Kissing. Touching. Smiling in a way I hadn't seen on her face in years. There was a video, only 12 seconds long, taken from across the street. It was grainy, but clear enough. Jason came out with her afterward, walked her to her car. She leaned against the driver door. He pulled her in and kissed her neck. She laughed. She kissed him back. She said, "See you next week." I closed the laptop. Then I closed every window in the house. Turned off every light. Sat in the dark, hands trembling. I wasn't angry. That's the part one didn't expect. I was just done. Done waiting for her to love me again. Done trying to hug someone who flinched at the idea of being held. But I couldn't just leave. Not yet. I had one final move to make. Because if she wanted out, she should have just said so. Instead, she gave me lies. So I was going to give her a performance. And the last scene would be silent. It's remarkable what someone won't see when they think they've broken you. I spent the next week building my exit, brick by brick, and she never saw a single one being laid. That's what happens when someone stops looking at you like you're real. You become invisible. And when you're invisible, you can do anything. I started small. I changed the passwords, bank logins, streaming accounts, even the home Wi-Fi. Nothing too drastic, just little things she'd assume were glitches. I set up new email accounts. Quietly opened a checking account at a credit union across town. Transferred a few hundred at a time, nothing to trigger any alerts. Every lunch break, every moment alone, I chipped away at the version of me she thought was still sleeping in our bed. I pulled cash from ATMs. Started boxing up personal things at the office. I even asked for a remote work option, pretending I had a minor back injury. My boss didn't even blink. He just told me to take care of myself and get better soon. That almost made me cry. Being treated with kindness after months of pretending I didn't notice my wife coming home in someone else's cologne was more than I could take. At home, I cleaned out my drawers one shirt at a time. Swapped framed photos with prints I didn't care about. Replaced the ring she gave me with a cheap replica from a novelty shop. She never noticed. Not even when the original disappeared from my nightstand. She was too busy staring at her phone, smiling at someone who wasn't me. Then came the Thursday before our anniversary. That night, she came home later than usual. No apology. No excuse. Just a breezy. Traffic was insane. As she tossed her gym bag down and kicked off her shoes like she hadn't just lied straight through her teeth. I offered to make her tea. She declined. Said she was too tired. I watched her walk to the bathroom and close the door behind her. That's when I pulled the box out from the hall closet. My wedding ring, the printed photos of her and Jason, the receipts from her fake yoga trips, and a single envelope addressed to her in my handwriting. She didn't even notice when I placed it on her nightstand. She didn't see me watching her through the bathroom mirror as she tied her hair up with one of my old t-shirts. She didn't ask why I stayed up that night while she went to sleep with her back turned, as usual, because she thought I was too broken to leave. But I wasn't broken. I was ready. And the next morning, when she woke up and reached for me across the bed, her hand landed on cold sheets and nothing else. She shot up and looked around, probably thinking I'd gone to make coffee. Then she saw the closet. Half empty. Her jaw clenched. I know it did, because I watched the security camera feed from my phone. One I installed the night she told Jason I'd never see it coming. She paced. She pulled open drawers. Checked the bathroom. Called me once. Twice. Left a voicemail. It was shaky. Something about misunderstanding. Something about can we talk? But she hadn't even opened the envelope yet. I knew she wouldn't open it right away. She's the type who likes to control the narrative, even when she's alone. But when she finally did, when she saw everything I knew, when she realized I hadn't been blind or weak or naive, I imagined something cracked in her. Because she didn't call again that night. But the next morning, she showed up at my sister's house. And what happened on that porch changed everything. I was in the guest room folding laundry when my sister called out. "Curtis, there's a woman at the door. Says she's your wife." Her voice wasn't angry, just confused. She didn't know everything, just enough to know I'd left for good. I walked down the hall slowly, already knowing what I'd see before I turned the corner. Eloise stood on the front porch like a storm pretending to be a drizzle. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her hair was tied back in a messy knot, and she was wearing the same hoodie she used to steal from my side of the closet and call her favorite. It used to make me smile. Now, it made my stomach twist. She looked up when I stepped into view. Eyes wide, glassy. She opened her mouth to speak, then froze. I didn't say anything. I just leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, waiting. Finally, she said, "You didn't even say goodbye." I laughed, not out of amusement, but because of how ridiculous that sounded coming from her. "You said plenty of goodbyes, Eloise. I just wasn't supposed to hear them." She flinched. "That's not fair." "No." I tilted my head. "Then tell me what is." "Because I've been hugging a woman who secretly hated every touch. Loving a woman who smiled in another man's bed and came home to pretend. Planning our anniversary while you were busy deciding which lie you'd tell next." Her jaw tensed. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." I stayed silent. "I just felt trapped," she whispered. "I didn't know how to talk to you anymore." "You didn't try," I said, still calm. "You found someone else instead." She stepped closer, lowering her voice like it mattered. "Jason wasn't supposed to mean anything. It was just attention, okay?" I didn't know how far it went until I realized I didn't want to lose what we had. "You didn't lose it," I said. "You traded it. Big difference." Her eyes filled with tears. For a second, I thought she was about to collapse into some performance. Begging, crying, apologizing, but no. She caught herself, straightened her back. Her expression shifted into something sharper. "So that's it. You just run away? You don't even let me explain?" "I gave you years to explain," I said. "You spent them building a second life while I stood in the ruins of the first one." She reached into her purse, pulled out the envelope I left. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Spying, collecting proof, making some grand exit like you're the victim." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She shook the envelope like it meant something. "You think leaving a box of receipts in silence makes you noble?" "No," I said flatly. "It makes me free." She stared at me, lips parted, like she couldn't believe I'd said it out loud. Like I was supposed to still be that soft, quiet man who'd melt the moment she showed up in tears. But I wasn't him anymore. I'd buried that version of myself with every hug she faked, every Thursday night she disappeared. Every morning, she looked through me like I was the static between her real moments. "Don't do this," she said. "Don't throw it all away." I blinked, actually stunned. "Me? I'm not the one who threw anything." She stepped back. For the first time, I saw fear in her. Not of me, but of the future she'd just realized she can't rewrite. I let the silence hang, long and deliberate. Then I turned, walked back inside, and closed the door behind me. She didn't knock again. But that wasn't the end, because the fallout wasn't over. And the man she betrayed me with? He was about to regret ever opening his door to her. The day after she showed up on my sister's porch, I expected everything to go quiet. But silence didn't come right away. It never does with people like Eloise. I got 3 missed calls by noon. 1 from her, 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. Then came the emails. Long, rambling messages about how she made mistakes, how she wasn't herself, how she just wanted to feel seen. Not once did she say, "I hurt you." Not once did she ask what I felt. It was all about the spiral she created and expected me to spin into with her. But I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because there was nothing left to say. And then something strange happened. Jason reached out. Not through Eloise. Not even directly. He messaged me on an old social app one hadn't used in years. Said he found my name through mutual gym contacts. His message? Short. No punctuation. No emotion. Didn't know she was married. Not like that. My bad. That was it. I didn't reply to him either. Because the truth was, they both deserved each other. Not in the poetic, romantic way Eloise probably imagined in her little fantasy world, but in the brutal, lonely way that liars always end up surrounded by mirrors. Let them have awkward Thursday nights and forced small talk over takeout. Let them try to stitch something out of betrayal. That wasn't my story anymore. Mine was already moving on. It's been 6 months now. I moved out of my sister's place after 3 weeks and into a small loft above a bookstore on the east side. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. No more pretending. No more shrinking. No more twisting myself into emotional origami just to make someone else feel whole. I started therapy. Real therapy. Not just sitting in a dark room with my thoughts. I'm learning how to speak without apologizing for existing. It's weird. Hard. Good. The therapist says I had what she calls invisible grief. Mourning something that technically never died, because I never really had it in the first place. I think she's right. A few weeks ago, I met someone. It wasn't on purpose. Her name's Tessa. She owns the little bakery downstairs. The first time I walked in, she asked if I was okay because I looked like I hadn't slept in weeks. I told her the truth. I've been better. She handed me a coffee and a warm peach tart on the house. You look like someone who needs to be reminded that not all sweet things go sour. I nearly laughed. Nearly cried. We've been getting coffee together since. I'm not rushing into anything. I don't want to rewrite the past with someone new. I just want to live honestly, quietly, fully. And if I ever love again, which I think I might, I'll know the difference between someone who accepts my hugs and someone who aches for them. Eloise texted me once more last month. I saw you walking by the bakery. You looked happy. I don't think I've ever seen that look on you before. I guess I was the reason you never wore it. She was right. And that's the only message from her I've ever saved. Not because it hurt, but because it proved I made the right choice. I didn't walk away from love. I walked back to myself.